Today, we figured this was a good time during the VW MOOC and here at Nonprofit Commons to do a presentation to kind of share about the Second Life mobile viewer and also get a chance to discuss anything and have a conversation for anybody, both those of us here on the seats, and I'll share a little info on those bios, and then also for all of you out there. So whether you have used it or not, there'll still be opportunity to chat. So I'm going to share bios in chat for everybody on the thing. These actually, for most of us, are our VW BPE bios when we last used them, so I'm just gonna kind of ad-lib that I am obviously Mariana Chat Noir, Joyce Betancourt in the physical world. I the majority of the time host these weekly meetings, and I am founder of avacon.org, who is the sort of fiscal sponsor of Nonprofit Commons community now, and you can find me kind of at my link. I'm going to share a little bit about the other folks, of course, and of course many of you already know all of us, but Leah Lobo, Cynthia Cologne, as you may also know her, is a professor at Colorado Technical University, Parker University, although some of this may have changed, I'm sure, and she's probably teaching you. That's a 60-second class. It's probably higher than that because this was during VW BPE. And she's a futurist, a researcher at Virtual Harmony, an author, an NPC education co-chair with me, and also on the TCC Hawaii board, and a co-organizer with me for the Open Simulator Community Conference. Yes. And then I'm gonna Madori. This is kind of the bio that Buffy was able to find. So Madori is a product specialist on the land operations team, and feel free to correct or add in anything in chat if you want on this. But among other things, she works with educators and various other types of specialty regions, from their inception and development to maintenance and support. Many of you know her too for the wonderful support she's given many of us here, and especially through the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium. So and the kind of archipelago of education sims and moving everybody together. So thank you for that. Much love from the nonprofit and education sphere from all of us. And Buffy initially service integration engineer, a futurist, a mega hero, we can all attest to that, a social innovator, board member for Nonprofit Commons and the Metaverse Libraries. She's an SL mentor. She's a founder of Join Me, Join Us. She's a global grassroots campaign to connect and be one for Voice for Change, who believes that virtual worlds reality will connect us in the future in ways we can only imagine now, which is a great segue. So, and with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Buffy, who's going to give us a bit of that, positive believing in virtual worlds, Second Life, of course, and the mobile viewer stuff. So with that, Buffy, if you can hear me, you can kind of start in your part.
I hear you, right, and thank you very much. That's a wonderful introduction, and hello, everyone. Really, really great to see you today. It's an exciting time to be in Second Life, and that's something I hope you take away from today's session. The excitement with the recent release of Linden Labs' mobile client, as it's a step forward in keeping with technology for them and for us. I've always believed if we are to reach the next generation, we must stay current with technology. For nonprofits and educational organizations, this is critical. Thank goodness we've kept up as best we can. Linden's mobile client is another step in progress, as mobile phones are well on their way to being the main form of use to communicate and play, and I would add, and more. We're keeping up with technology by understanding the mobile client And for those who are Premium or Premium Plus residents, we get to be pioneers with a first look. It's impossible to test every little detail, find every bug, especially with something as complex as the mobile client. And how brave of the Lindens to release a beta app, because normally that would be suicide for any developer to have it available for download from Apple App Store or Google Play. Lindens have worked hard to release a first off the mark or beta mobile client app, which is why it's a controlled rollout to a limited audience for now. And not just that, Lindens are giving us an opportunity to say what feature we miss or would like via their feedback link. And that this is something else I'd like you to take away from this session. To keep in mind that all teams behind the scenes at Linden Labs have given us their very best client deemed worthy of our use as a start. This is a step in the right direction, but it's not the final version. We can help with the development process by taking the mobile client for a spin, kicking the wheels, and doing a few wheelies. Most importantly is to provide useful and positive feedback, because I know the Lindens are listening with all ears. While trying the mobile client, it'll be fun to be a new resident again, learning how to sit or chat or get around. We're a long way from leaving our hair at the region crossing like used to happen in the good old days of Second Life's infancy. The mobile client will continue to evolve as well, and Linden Labs are to be congratulated that they listened to our request for a mobile client, because here we are. Thank you to our panelists, Rai and Lear, for being here, and to Madori, who has always been a great supporter of the nonprofit commons. We appreciate your coming here, Madori. It's always great to see you. To be clear, Madori is not an expert with the mobile client, but is with us today to be part of the excitement and promotion, and of course, answer any questions she's able to. One last thought I'd like to mention is a quote from Xenia, who is all about community building. She says, "We like to be in the know, and if we cannot be in front of our computers, we want to be here with our community. That sense of belonging is important to us." And the mobile client will provide that and more. I'll have Rai take over now, who will lead the panel and is ready to start us off. Over to you, Rai, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Buffy, and thank you for kind of cheerleading us in. I figured, and I'll give the link to the notes again, just in case, where you'll see that, and we'll put the chat transcript in here too at the end. But let me put this back in here, notes, and then the other thing that might be useful for some of you as well is the slides, which I have up here. And mostly these slides, and before we get into the discussion part, I thought it would be useful that we go over the app a little bit, right? So the slides are mostly kind of screenshots of the app. And that'll get a chance for many of you who've yet to kind of experience it to sort of see it and get a feel for it. So the slide behind us is actually from the sort of the screenshot for the last video that Linden Lab put out about the viewer, and I'm going to give you the link to that here. And we're not going to play it now, but it was a great backdrop, and I figured also a useful thing that it kind of, if you've not really heard much about it or interacted with it, that's a good kind of start to sort of see where the update on things is. And then the general page too for the SL mobile viewer. So that's another kind of important link in this. And again, the notes kind of have all these links, so you don't have to worry about saving them now. If you just kind of pull up the notes, you'll be able to get them later. But it kind of gives a lot of interesting overview, and I'll reference this too. So I'm going to start. I'm going to sort of go forward with a slide, but I'm gonna, the first thing for those who are curious is, of course, and as we said, it's for Premium and Premium Plus members, but if you're going to, and this is kind of from the wiki, and I'll give the link out to the wiki in a second. There's a whole wiki that they've put together for questions in regards to the mobile app. So the whole how do I download it? It's, as Buffy mentioned, it's on the Apple App Store and Google Play, and I'll give you the link to those. Okay, so you can download it from either of those. If you want, if you are a Premium or Premium Plus member, you'll be able to log in. So, and I will also put in the specs that they have for, or the kind of overview of the that both, of course, iOS and Android devices. I will say, and they give, and that blurb gives some recommendations. Again, that comes from the wiki, and the FAQ. I'm calling it a wiki, but it's really an FAQ. There's the FAQ link. They give some sort of overarching specs that what operating system that you should be running, and that they obviously, especially if you have an Android, there's such diversity in Android devices that, you know, a mid to higher end device, and then compatible with something that's like a Pixel 6, Android 13, iOS would be the 16.6.1 at least. So that's in the downloading it, and again, you'll be able, anybody can download it, but you wouldn't be able to log in yet, unless you have a Premium or Premium Plus account. So behind us is the slide for what that initial screen looks like when you kind of go to log in. You'll get a lovely photo of Second Life somewhere in an avatar, and you'll be able to put in your username and your password. You can click on where you want to land, similar to the regular web viewer, downloadable viewer. It's defaulting. I'm not sure if it defaults to my last location. I think it does, but if you click that, you'll see on the right the image in the middle that you could choose it to be your home, your mobile showcase, favorites. You have, and then if you went to favorites, it'll pull up your favorites, and it would sort of be able to give you more options to even start with. So, and then of course you will hit sign in, and you'll get the lovely little connecting, this great rainbow kind of Second Life hand gesture logo that will come up, and then depending upon where you will, the next screen will sort of still have that logo, and it'll tell you that you're welcome to that region. So if you're very new to the app, there is this little mini tutorial they give you about moving around, and I figured I'd put these up. I took where it talks about, and this is sort of the biggest thing. Of course, you're on a mobile device, so you're using your fingers and the screen and touching the screen. So very different than what you might be used to with your mouse on the desktop. For many of us who've been using Second Life for years and years, so you'll sort of see in each thing that the movement, again, you'll be able to touch in that lower left corner, and it'll bring up a little circle, a little solid circle with a sort of a line circle around it, like a bullseye, and then like a little circle perimeter that goes out just beyond that. And that is sort of, think of it like your joystick. So once that's up, you'll be able to kind of click. You'll be able to keep your finger and kind of move it left or right within that circle, and it'll be like you're moving a joystick. So if you want to walk, as it says here on the slide, you drag the joystick in the direction you want to walk. If you want to run, you drag it farther outward. So, and you have to be careful because it is sensitive. Once you have it activated, you can kind of sort of swipe, drag beyond it, and it's still making you run. You want to sort of pick your finger up if you're done running. It takes a little bit of practice to sort of get that sensitivity, and you can adjust some of the sensitivity in the advanced setting stuff, and we'll show that way at the end, but you'll be able to do that. Then you have flying, and I'll show you what that looks like on the screen. So you can walk and you can also fly. That little joystick menu, when you see it, the little solid circle will have in it a symbol for flying. It'll kind of look a little like that figure there on the flying. So you would double tap that and to uh, stop flying or to fly. And you can kind of swap back and forth between walking and flying if you double tap and to start or stop. So now let's go on to the next slide. So this little tutorial, it takes you through the first time you use it. So you will see this too when you log in and use the app. All right. In this vein of moving, and I think that's the first thing that's like super important, is like kind of getting that used to the moving around, since it's very different than what we do with a mouse. And you'll see my avatar in that first slide, that first screenshot, where you see the little circle menu right in the lower left there, you know, and all I did, like I said, I clicked in that area and then it brought up the little circle menu. And right now you see it's I'm flying, right? So I double clicked and I went into fly, and you'll see the little circle turns. It shows them in the while I'm flying. It shows the little walking, and if I want to walk, I would then double click where it says walk. So the icon, the circle shows you the little icon for whenever you bring up a menu, you still see where you are, you still see visually where you are, it just darkens the screen a little bit, so it doesn't completely obscure what's happening behind you. So, and then at the bottom you'll see it tells you what the name of the parcel is that you're on. So that happens to be the Avicon offices here, just to the left of me, so you'll see what the name of the parcel is, and then if there is audio, an audio streaming on that particular parcel, it will bring that up and you can click play. In this case, I had already clicked play, so you'll see that it brings, like, where the little volume thing is where the little play button would have been, but once you click it, it turns to this, and then it actually will tell you what is coming up. So it's a music stream in there. It'll actually tell you, the name and the artist, and it'll give you a volume slider, and you can pause and play. So that's kind of a great way. If you were going to go to a music event, you would just be doing this similarly, or anywhere else that they might be streaming audio, you could do that So back to the kind of to the menu choices that we have. We're gonna kind of in the slides walk through them. We won't get too deep, but at least we'll go through places, avatar, chat, people, and settings. About is overall information about the app. You can explore that on your own. Of course, sign out is pretty obvious. So the first thing is places, and you'll sort of see if you click on places, you get a sub menu, and you'll see that it says my home, favorites, mobile showcase, destination guide. And then when you click on any of those, my home will just bring you to your home. Favorites, it will come up with a list of anything that you have favorited, and you'll sort of see those as a list. And then we'll share a little bit about that later, but you'll see all your list of favorites. And then mobile showcase will look exactly like as you see to the right, like you happen to see right there the Lost Gardens of Apollo as one example. Destination guide is a little bit more fancier, and it is basically the app version of the regular destination guide you might be familiar with. So, the other thing that was in the menu, we'll kind of move away from places, is avatar. Now, avatar in this case is mostly about changing your outfits, right? So when you click on avatar, you get that outfits folder on the right. And anything you have made an outfit of will be available there. So if you plan on using the mobile viewer, of course, you might want to make sure you have some outfits if you do want to kind of change quickly while using the app. But that's what you have access to in regards to changing your appearance while using the app at this particular point. Now we're going to move on to the chat and the people stuff, which is kind of the biggest part of it, of course, the interacting with everybody. When you click on chats, you get, and sorry if I'm going a little quick, very, very sorry there. So when you click on chat, you will see that it pulls up anything that you kind of have that is active at the time. You will always see nearby chat. You will also always see new chat. So you can always click a chat and, new chat and search for somebody and chat with them. You can also, a nearby chat will tell you how many avatars are around you that you could talk to. One just means you. So if you see one person nearby, that is you. You have, if there's two, then there's somebody else there with you. And otherwise, it just works the same as nearby chat for distance and everything. Any particular group that is chatting at that time, you'll see listed below. So if you've got like a group, chat happening. In this case, when I happen to log in, 50 Linden Fridays, which is a great place for a bargain, by the way. Definitely go shopping after this. But that will show up. And as examples of all of these things, you can see to the right, nearby chat. This happened. This was a screenshot that when I was at the SL birthday and visiting the SL birthday. That was the kind of local chat that was happening. I also want you to take note of this, and we'll see it a little bit better later, that in a crowded event, things take longer to load, and people come in these little, like sort of transparency silhouettes. We'll get a better picture of that later. But this is what nearby chat looks like. And you'll see at the bottom, it says say something. That's where you will type. And then you hit the little red, the little blue arrow, and that'll submit, right? Very obvious there. Direct IMs, direct messages, works the same way. In this example, though Lear was offline, I was testing this chatting with Lear, so I just sent her a message, telling, and of course, if she was online, she would talk to me. As you can see, when you want to say something, and it happens whether you're in local chat or in a message or in a group chat, whenever you start typing in the say something box, it will bring up the little QWERTY keyboard, and you can just, with your finger type on, just as if you were text messaging somebody, and then hit enter. That's what a message looks like. And then to the right of that is a group message. This happens to be that 50 Linden Fridays group. And the other thing and you'll see that chat works the same way. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that things within chat are interactive in the same way that they might be here in regular chat. So that link in that third one, the marketplace link, if I clicked on it, it would actually ask me if I wanted to go out to the marketplace, similar to the desktop app, and then it would send, and it would just sort of launch my browser, like my mobile browser, and go right to that. So it would still keep Second Life open, but it would sort of open up in that, in the other app, the web thing. So you can kind of swap back and forth, and it won't close out the mobile viewer, which is nice. The other thing that you can do, and you can kind of see this next to anytime you're chatting, and I wanted to bring this up, anytime, like, say you're in a group chat or even local chat, you'll always see to the right of somebody's name 3 little dots. So in this case, I happen to be, like I said, in the 50 Linden Fridays. You'll see to the right of me, I just right-clicked, I clicked the little dots, I should say, on my touched it and clicked it, and it pulls up this little menu. And so anywhere where there's chat happening on the mobile app, you'll see those 3 little dots next to a person's name. It'll bring up a menu like this. So this allows you to be able to view people's profiles, chat with them, send friend requests. You can report abuse, which is nice if you're in an event. We've had to have things like that happen before. You can block people. You can also offer them a teleport. So if you were, say, in the Nonprofit Commons group and somebody chats in there like, oh great, in the NPC group, like, oh, you guys are meeting, send me a teleport. You could click on those 3 dots, offer them a teleport, they would come to where you are. So, but you'll get this menu, and it's anywhere that you see chat, you'll always see, and you could see that across all of these 3 little dots next to the right of people's names. So with that, I'm gonna go on to the next slide. So, continuing kind of on in, this is on the people thing, that when we were on that main menu, the people. and there's a lot of overlap, like because you can get from profiles to chatting and from chatting to profiles, so you can kind of go back and forth even without going to the menu between people and chat. So uh, when you click on people, you will see this drop down menu and it starts off kind of automatically with all friends. So you can kind of see how all friends is sort of grayed out a bit below that, but that's a list of like the start of a list of all my friends. But you'll see all friends, friends online, recent, blocked, groups nearby, and you can like scroll down to to either of those and click the one that you would like to select, and just like the other menu, the other sub menu, and you'd go from there. So here's some examples. Like you can kind of see, like I said, the grayed out what all friends is below. Then friends online is of course a smaller list of that. So that's when I clicked friends online. You'll see to the right of that second, here's the second screenshot, and it'll show folks that are online. You can see Beth is there, at least at that particular point she was online, and others of course. And then from there, I wanted to share that you can also, once you're in to share sort of what profiles look like. Again, when you click from here, you don't have the little three dots next to the name. How you would access their profiles, you just kind of click on them and it'll bring up their profile. So if you were in chat, you'd have to use the three dots to bring up from that other sub menu, bring up their profile. But from here, if you just click on any of these names, it'll bring up their profile, and you can kind of see to the right of that what Lear's and my own look like. If you're looking at your friends' profiles or anybody else in a group or whatever, or locally, you'll see that there's the ability to message people and offer teleports. And then there's also more, which has that same sort of sub-menu. So, you can mute people. You can kind of do some of those other options that were in that prior slide. But you can scroll down. If somebody's got a really long profile, you can continue to scroll down and read. There's also left and right. You could see in the middle kind of that screenshot, there's left and right buttons. You can actually scroll through all of all of your friends' profiles this way too, if you wanted to scroll. Of course, if you've got a lot of friends, that takes a long time. Right now, not everybody's profile photos are loading, and I think that's probably because they're prioritizing those who are premium and premium plus, so we're probably not seeing everybody's information right now, like everybody's photos and stuff. It's kind of condensed, so and then you'll sort of see what my profile looks like. I didn't try messaging myself. I don't know what that would do, I guess, but maybe I could message myself, and you'll still see the same left and right arrows, but because I'm looking at my own profile, and I don't have that ability to, but you could see in Lear's how you could see the next Lear. It's probably an alt of Lear that I bet I have also as a friend. That is that next person to look at. I don't know who the one before that was. So this gives you an idea of like that people and deeper into the friends stuff. So now a bit more about under people. There was groups, right? So you saw groups was towards the bottom there, right? Because that's another thing that is kind of very useful. So it will pull up a list of groups. It isn't. It's not listing all my groups. I don't know if it's pulling a certain number at this point, but it will pull up a list of groups, and you could scroll and you can select any of them, and sort of similar to when you see your friends or people around you and you're scrolling through them and you click and you can get their profiles, you can do the same thing for your groups. You scroll through your groups, you would then could look at the profiles. So I think this is another important thing to mention, that like we all should be thinking about updating our group profiles, the abouts about our groups, because people and our own personal profiles, of course, because these will be coming up a lot. But you'll see you can kind of look at any of the group profiles of any of your groups by clicking on them. And here's a few examples of some of the ones that are in mind that many of you know: NPC, the Virtual World Education Roundtable, and the VWBPE. So that's another kind of great kind of feature in that regard. And similarly, if you click message on any of those, you can then start chatting in the group chat or start a group chat. So if you're going to give out notices, like for somebody like Beth, she could just go into groups, click on that, and start typing in them, right? And because you're on your mobile phone, if say you were doing this for Outreach, you could copy select a group of a blurb of text, from another app, and then copy paste it in here. Go to this app, go to groups, and start copy pasting to kind of get the word out about an event. Or it's a way to kind of do similar outreach, but being on your mobile phone. So, this is sort of that whole, like, since we're talking about since we were talking before about movement and also places, the slide should have probably been a little bit further up. But these are various places I had visited, and I just sort of wanted to show you kind of sort of how it looks when you're actually in a place. And for the most part, especially if they're like anything, avatars are heavy load on a desktop viewer as much as they are in mobile. So the more people there are, the longer things will take to load. The more complex the objects around you, obviously that'll take a little bit to load. So you might have to, when you come into a place, wait for both the objects and people to load. Objects will load quicker. So that's I'm standing in front of the Avicon office. That I'm in a more natural setting. You could see how it's dealing with trees and grass and the transparency layering of all those things, which is nice. And then things can get kind of quirky too sometimes. If there's a lot of depth involved, which you can change in settings, and we'll talk about that, changing like what your draw distance is and other things. But in this case, like, you may not see to that third screenshot, you might not see too deep into something and it looks partly rezzed. Also, I've had some issues with clicking on some movable objects that they're not quite moving the way you might think they are. Like in the case that's a drawbridge, I did that long press, clicked on it, clicked selected touch. It tried to open itself, but it was weird pivoting. So sometimes I think objects that have complex scripted movement are still a little funny. So that doesn't mean you broke the bridge. It just means it's rendering weird to you. We went back and double checked this, logged in. It was fine. So don't be alarmed. And then that picture to the right, the rightmost, that was, I showed you earlier, that photo of me chatting at the SL birthday. That's when I used the mobile app to actually go into an event at to go into an SL birthday event, and there were a lot of avatars there, and so things take a long time to load, and for quite a while avatars were showing up as these little transparent silhouettes of themselves with their names atop. But you still could chat, as you saw in that prior thing, and things may take a while to load or only load some pieces of it. But again, remember, besides not just the app itself having to load things, it also is going to depend upon, and I'll give this caveat there too in regards to stuff, you're using your phone, and so either you're setting your phone to use your internet connection using Wi-Fi around you, or you're using your mobile data, which is probably harder on and more expensive potentially. So keep that in mind if you're probably using Second Life. If you have the opportunity to be using Wi-Fi, you should be using Wi-Fi, and hopefully it's a good connection as much as possible, and that'll help things as well. So it's also dependent upon your connection. And we'll go on to the next slide. This is settings, and we're pretty much almost through all this stuff. You'll see there's general, notifications, developer tools, and give feedback. General will bring up that next tab, which has a lot of the settings that we're kind of used to going to on the desktop app. So whether you want to show name tags, your draw distance, right? And especially if you're worried about mobile data, like say you're in a situation where you don't have Wi-Fi around, you might want to change your draw distance to something lower. If you're on Wi-Fi, you can, and your phone is, not heating up and complaining about it, you can, there is a warning when you go to draw distance that it doesn't recommend it past a certain point. LOD, the level of detail, same thing. You can adjust that. Transparency mode, that's more like how it is dealing with alpha images, and you can change that. So for some reason you're in a place where alphas aren't displaying right, you can go into your settings and adjust that. MSAA, I can't say that I know what that is. And then you know, time of day, that's where you can kind of toggle that, like, are you using the day-night cycle or the local lighting? I think default is just defaulting to whatever's local. And then you have under audio, enable streaming audio. Once you click enable streaming audio, that's when you'll get what we saw earlier, where it will actually show up at the very bottom of the app if you're in a plot that allows it, and then you could click you know, to play or not. So enabling it doesn't mean that it will autoplay, it just means that it will be available for you and it'll come up. And then you have show grid selector at the login. I didn't have that active, but if you do, that would give you an extra thing on that initial login screen to be able to decide if you wanted to be in the beta grid or in the main grid. Most of us probably just logging into the live beta grid here, but if you were trying to do testing and also wanted to see what something looked like on the app, you could do that. Another thing on that menu, we saw notifications on this underneath settings. This is actually, and there's a good image of this in the main, I didn't pull a slide of it, but in the main mobile viewer page, and I'll put that link back here, like where Linden Lab has all the information on the mobile viewer. You can see an image of what notifications look like, but basically this isn't about notifications in world. This is like when you have the app closed and you're not logged in, are you allowing it, if somebody IMs you, to come through as a phone notification on your, you know, on your home screen, which you might want to if you want to know if somebody is IMing you. So in my case, I have friend IMs on, so if you were to message me here and I was offline, send me an IM, it will come through to my phone as just a thing, and then I would know, and maybe I log in as my phone to get back to you and chat live. And then you could also do that to non-friend IMs. Of course, these are alerts, so you know, if you get a lot of random messages, this might be too noisy, but just know that those actually come up on your actual device, not on just the app. So then you get into developer tools. You can kind of dive down deeper into this. It's a very long scrolly page. You probably don't want to touch a lot of this unless you kind of research and search into what all these things are. But there are some things you can kind of play with, and certainly the check Linden balance is probably something most of us might be curious about. I have to confess, I haven't tried to do any shopping or interact, like we talked about interacting with options, so I haven't tried to click on objects and see if I could buy things. So, you know, that might be useful if you want to know what you got for Lindens and try testing it in that way. And then the last thing is the feedback, which is very important for if there are things that you are seeing and they are that are bugs or weird things, you can give feedback, and this is the best scenario to do that. Or there is, I'm putting in chat, there is also the web tool that Linden Lab uses for feedback, both in the regular feedback and in the mobile viewer. Yes. So yes, very important. This is the whole kind of point, is ultimately we are all beta testing this, which is a great thing. Like if there are things that we are seeing that aren't quite loading right or aren't quite interacting right, or then leave feedback for them, so that way it can be better improved and very helpful for them. So that's kind of it for me. I mean, I know hopefully we still have maybe 15 minutes to chat a bit or ask questions. You know, we've got a couple questions that we'll probably throw in a chat too if nobody comes up with anything. But if you've got any questions, or you know, I guess the first thing I wanted to ask is, has anybody actually tried the viewer? So, and I forgot to ask this beforehand. And I'll put that in chat too, if you're following along for that.
I added did it, Rhiannon.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I ran into him, Gentle. I actually had shared a screenshot and was telling him about the presentation. I was always going to use that little IM chat as an example of IM chat. um, yeah, I think, Beth, definitely, I think that is the case. If you look through, I'll leave this kind of image up, but definitely that transparency, like that scene where now I'm actually like amongst layers of grasses and bushes and trees, like that rendered really well, although I have seen some older, some of the most weird things I've seen have been in much older objects. So there are some weirdness, I think, and I'll, have to put my own feedback in. I think there are some weirdness with older objects, like especially some things that aren't mesh that might have been playing around with how alphas are mapped to something, and I've seen some weirdness there. But for the most part, it's been good. Yeah, and I did. I think some other interesting questions. This was another question that. Oh, and for folks that are asking, all these photos I took on an Android phone. I currently have a Samsung Galaxy 23 FE. I think it's a 23. So it's kind of like having a 2022 model. I think it's like a little bit slightly scaled down, but yeah, that's what I was using. Probably, I imagine if you have it set up such that notifications, like if you, I mean, it would depend upon that, probably that Watch's mobile app, but if it's set up such that notifications from all apps or from certain apps, right? Like the Watch app itself might have the which applications do you want to get notifications of? Then you probably will get it. Happy Life, and this is probably a question for you, Madori. That whole idea of voice. There are some things in settings where you can kind of go in and sort of explore that. Explore trying to test some of that, I think. Right? Am I correct? Yeah, I think that for many of us, that is the key, or is a key bit of communication. And it's obvious a lot of thought has gone into interacting in communication, like when you see like the groups and you see, people and, and even the chat stuff, right? I think Midori is typing. Yeah, I know that for many, and I had a little question from Ellie on that I'll just put in chat. It's pretty much what was already asked, but this is what her question was. Because bringing up the point that especially for teaching, training, even like a meeting like what we're talking about here, right? What we're doing today here is easier to do because we can, at least while presenting, we can talk in voice. I know there was also another question that Ellie had about what about Chromebooks and tablets. And I know Chromebooks is kind of like it's not an app, it's sort of it's a web application in that regard, a lot of those things. I imagine tablets, as long as they'd be able to go to the Play Store or the Apple Store, it would still be the same, whether it was an iPad or yeah, yep, yeah, that's what I figured. I mean, the Chromebooks I think are probably the bigger, and that's probably for those doing teaching, because I know installing applications as the desktop application is in Second Life can be often tough in certain professional settings or teaching settings, right? Depending upon network permissions, and device permissions. And then another question, and I think this was something that Dale had brought up too. He brought up the whole PBR and some of the advanced lighting things. Like, do we know if any of that will ever make its way here to the app? And then I also have seen some quirky things with some of the way, like an animated thing that might not be a mesh bento thing. I've seen some problems with the show hide. Although they seem to, once it gets to load a bit, maybe it's just that those assets take a little bit longer to load because it has to go through seeing all those pieces of it before it can actually render it well. A good example of that show hide thing is like the parrot that sits on my shoulder. It's really just sort of showing hiding to simulate motion, you know? But it works. It looked funny the first time I loaded walking around with the parrot because I saw all of its animations at first, but after that, it's almost like there's got to be a cache too for the app. It's gotten better, but you may notice that weirdness if you walk into a place where there's little animals or things moving around that use that. And I think there was another, and this was a more general question. Oh, when will it open to everyone? That's a good question, iClectic. Yeah, Leah, exactly. Animesh. And speaking of parrots, you'll have to forgive my parrot singing in the background. Well, thanks for that, Madori, on the Chromebook. So, Beth, you asked, oh, sorry, Shiloh. What kind of impact will using mobile app have on regular users in Second Life, if at all? I mean, I think it's obvious as you go through this, what you see is missing is content creation, right? So presumably, I mean, well, first off, that's a kind of it gets into deeper menus and more things that they have to sort. So I imagine that may be a harder thing to kind of come to the app. So the desktop is still probably going to be exceptionally important if you're creating content. Yeah. So if you are, making spaces and setting up things, or I imagine even moving around a lot of large objects, like, I mean, not if it's an automatic resor, you could probably get away with that, especially if it had like either chat commands or a click command. I don't know, and that's a good question for somebody to test. Some objects, when you click on them, bring up an advanced menu. I don't know if it can do that. Like if it's like we talked about that interacting with objects, if you click on an object and you click, when you get that little menu and you click that it's a touch thing, would it then bring up the menu for you? Because that's kind of rendered in a different way. So I don't know. You'd have to probably test that. That might be a question if it doesn't. So some of that more advanced interactions with objects may be, problematic. Like, so if you're doing a lot of setup of things or deep menu stuff into particular objects, you might be better off also in the desktop, I would think. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Madori is pretty much saying the same thing that I think we're all kind of on that page with. I mean, ultimately too, if you're uploading content or doing building, even in prims, like you're better off on the desktop. Uh,
And
that's a
was
oh,
making a
go on.
distinction. I don't know if you caught that, Rhiannon,
No,
about
no.
the cost of the app. And I was repeating Eclectic's question about when will the app be available for all users, not just Second Life Premium and Premium Plus users. And secondly, her point is that having a Second Life Premium or Premium Plus account is not free.
No, it is not free. Yeah. So, like, I guess that question is like, is there ever going to be a charge for the app itself if you were just a regular member? And then, like, when is it going to be available? I mean I mean, part of that's going to be a business question on their end if they're going to charge for that. But I would think it's certainly a, I don't know. But yes, when is it going to be available for everybody? I think is a good Midori if she knows. I guess I don't know what the roadmap is like. Some of the roadmap stuff is listed on Linden Labs site for various features, but I didn't find the roadmap for the mobile app. So the app right now is for at least, all of us that are Premium Plus is free. You just go there, download it, and use it. Premium or Premium Plus. But I don't know about. Um, yes, it is. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Matt Midori. Yeah, yeah. So I guess that's a good. This is good feedback for Linden Lab, right? The idea that for general new users, which I think that is a great user case, right? I think ultimately Linden Lab wants more people to come in and more people to be able to use the app, and pushing it out beyond a desktop client you have to install on a, you know, game standards desktop or laptop, puts it out of the reach of many. And so a mobile app opens that up to a lot more people. But to your point, right? Like, are they gonna have to pay for it if they're coming in as a new user? Like, is it like 99 cents to pay for the app and then they come in, or is it a free app and then in hopes that, business model wise on their side, like, you know, that they figure if they offer it for free that enough people will get interested, and just the new users alone will be worth that offer? Who knows? Um, uh, and then and then talk about the cost of the app. The other thing to bring up, and I brought it up in the presentation, and this came up, I think, from Dale as well. Dale lives um, is he in Mexico? I think he's in Mexico, isn't he? Or in sort of, um, that, for in many places, that idea that there isn't, there might not be reliable Wi-Fi, or even a home plan may be very limited for what they can have for internet bandwidth in some places, on your regular, even in your house, internet connection, and then never mind the idea of what you have for mobile data. So it becomes a lot like screening, like watching films on your uh, mobile device, that you have to be mindful that there is those costs and those things involved that will limit the accessibility in an equitable way, right, of who can use the app and for how long, right? It's going to vary based off of where they are in the world. Um, so, um, and that's another thing, I think, and you can, like we talked about in settings, you could go in and like help yourself out by lowering draw, just like you can here if you were going to use a metered Wi-Fi connection in some way. You can lower down that bandwidth, lower draw distance, I should say, lower draw distance, which would lower your bandwidth usage, and other things like that, like the level of detail, all those kind of things, which would be helpful. Just so that's another one. So and
We're
then
almost out of time, Rhiannon. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put it in chat, but I would think, because we're going to save the chat anyways, if there's anything else that you think of, and of course, the deal is, please, like, test this if you can test this and give feedback if because ultimately that will make it better. It will make the end product better for all of us. And I think many of us have been waiting for a mobile viewer for a long time, in regards to using it both professionally and, um, even personally in these social situations where maybe you're not at your house or I know Buffy brought up Buffy and Zinnia when they were talking about, initially they were like, what if you're at the beach, whatever. And you need to make that, connect with that person. And especially with notifications, if somebody's texted, gives you a notification that they're enrolled and you really do want to talk to that person, regardless of where you are, you'll be able to talk to them. Of course, don't do it while you're driving, but other than that. And this is links, and I will give again the link to the notes, which also has the slide links, of course, link to these notes. And I mean, otherwise, though we're wrapping things up here, and I know the Virtual World MOOC folks are wrapping up filming this, feel free to keep chatting in the chat. We'll save out, whenever, we'll save out the chat and it'll end up in the notes as well. And the video, VW MOOC folks are recording, so there'll be a recorded video of this as well. And you'll see the link to the slides. If you do want to download the slides, let me know. I have them up on Canva. That's what you're seeing them on, so I can download them for you. But thank you first off, thank you to Buffy, who was the proactive one to reach out to Madori and fill out the forms and get us kind of in this scenario of also being listed as an event that was kind of promoting this and being able to kind of sort of kick off this presentation. And thank you to Madori for being able to be here and also answer some questions. And Leo, of course, you're a uber technical person. I know, and Leah's been testing out the viewer and also the mobile viewer, and in conjunction with both the Second Life and Firestorm and other viewers, and is deep in the weeds of features and bug looking at. So she's somebody to also chat with. I'll post this, but I hope this was useful for folks. And by all means, test and feedback.